Creative Anatomy and Physiology Exploration Final Project, AP1 Lab, a project created by Rosa Montalvo, Beth Launderville, and Josh Longenecker.
Beginning as the brainstem exits through the foramen magnum of the skull, the spinal cord descends through the vertebral column to the lower lumbar region. As the spinal cord descends through the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal segments, 31 pairs of spinal nerves branch out and extend through the intervertebral foramina. The spinal cord thickens at the cervical enlargement from the C5 through the T1 and the lumbosacral enlargement from the L2 through the S3 in order to innervate the upper and lower limbs respectively. At its distal end located around L1, the spinal cord tapers into the conus medullaris. From the conus medullaris and through the vertebral canal, an extension of the spinal pia mater known as the filum terminale anchors the spinal cord to the coccyx. The lower spinal nerves continue to descend through the vertebral canal to the appropriate intervertebral foramina, creating a bundle of nerve roots known as the cauda equina.
Spinal cord protection. The spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column of the skeletal system, cerebrospinal fluid, and 3 spinal meninges. Deep to the vertebral column is an adipose tissue-filled space known as the epidural space. This provides needed cushioning between the spinal cord and the vertebral column. Just deep to this space is the first spinal meninx, the spinal dura mater. This layer assists in maintaining the position of the spinal cord and is made up of dense connective tissue, irregular type. The second spinal meninx is a spinal arachnoid mater, consisting of web-like collagen fibers connected to the third layer via arachnoid trabeculae. Separating these first 2 layers is a small space filled with interstitial fluid known as the subdural space. The third and final meninx is a tender spinal pia mater, which adheres directly to the surface of the spinal cord and contains the necessary blood vessels. The arachnoid mater and pia mater are separated by the subarachnoid space, which is filled with cerebrospinal fluid to act as additional cushioning on top of providing oxygen, nutrients, and other neuron supporting materials. Extensions of the pia mater, known as deniculate ligaments, pass through the other meninges in order to anchor the spinal cord to the dura mater. The spinal cord is a long tube-like band of tissue that connects your brain to your lower back. Your spinal cord carries nerve signals from your brain to your body and vice versa. The cervical enlargement includes spinal segments C5 through T1. This region is larger because it contains the additional neurons needed to control the upper limbs. The lumbar enlargement includes the spinal segments L2 through S3 and contains the additional neurons needed to control the lower limbs. The filum terminale is a configuration of pia mater that extends from the conus medullaris inferiorly through the vertebral canal and attaches through ligaments to the coccyx.
Reflexes of the spinal cord. Important information. A reflex is a fast, involuntary programmed response to stimulus that provides protection from a change that can disrupt homeostasis. There are many types of reflexes: spinal reflex, cranial reflex, somatic reflex, and autonomic reflex. These reflexes are used to help avoid or minimize bodily injury. A spinal reflex is the integration of incoming sensory information that is performed with the spinal cord. A cranial reflex is the integration of incoming sensory information that is performed with the brainstem. Somatic reflex is when there is a reflex resulting in contraction of a skeletal muscle. An autonomic reflex is a reflex that causes a response in cardiac muscle, smooth muscle tissues, glands, or adipose tissue. The reflex arc involves a simple pathway containing 5 components. 1, you have sensory receptors, which triggers an action potential. 2, a sensory neuron. An action potential is conducted by the sensory neuron to the CNS. 3, integration center. Action potential is passed to 1 or more neurons in the spinal cord or brainstem. 4, motor neuron. The axon conducts the action potential to an effector. 5, effector. An action potential stimulates the effector to do work. Integration centers. They can be simple or complex. You have monosynaptic integration centers, which involves only one synapse between the sensory and the motor neuron. You also have a polysynaptic integration center, which involves 2 or more synapses and 1 or more interneurons between the sensory and motor neuron. Fun fact: when the doctor taps your knee and your knee extends forward, it's called a patellar reflex. It's a rapid knee extension and the response due to the rapid contraction of the quadriceps femoris when a stretched patellar ligament is tapped. The reflex also tests the functions of the L4 segment of the spinal cord and the corresponding nerve roots.
Gray matter. This is located in the center of the spinal cord and appears dark. It contains cell bodies of neurons, glia cells, and unmyelinated axons. Dorsal horn. Located towards the dorsal side of the spinal cord, this region receives sensory information from the body via the dorsal nerve roots. Ventral horn. Found towards the ventral side of the spinal cord, this region contains motor neurons that send signals out to the muscles and glands. White matter surrounds the gray matter and appears light due to the presence of myelinated axons. These axons form tracks that carry signals up and down the spinal cord. Spinal nerve roots. Emerging from the spinal cord are nerve roots which carry sensory information towards the spinal cord and motor commands away from the spinal cord. The roots combine to form spinal nerves. Motor neurons. Located within the gray matter of the spinal cord, motor neurons transmit signals from the central nervous system to its respective muscles and glands. Sensory neurons. Sensory neurons play a fundamental role in the perception of sensory stimuli such as touch, pain, temperature, pressure, and vibration.
The spinal cord quiz. Take a crack at your knowledge of the spinal cord. Which space separates the vertebral column and the dura mater? The epidural space. What type of tissue is the dura mater made up of? Dense connective tissue, irregular type. What are the various segments of the spinal cord? Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal. How many spinal nerves are there? 31. The bundle of nerves extending through the lower vertebral column is known as what? The cauda equina. CSF fills which of the spaces between the 3 layers? The subarachnoid space. Which space separates the vertebral column and dura mater? The epidural space. True or false? The dentculate ligaments anchor the spinal cord directly to the vertebral column. False. The dentculate ligaments anchor to the dura mater.